I left my sister at the altar after I found out why her fiance was really marrying her. My sister Sarah has always been the golden child of the family, and she is used to getting exactly what she wants. When she announced her engagement to Jackson 6 months ago, my parents were over the moon because Jackson comes from a very wealthy family with a massive real estate empire. I have always been the black sheep because I chose to go into social work instead of joining the family business, and I have struggled financially for years. Sarah always made sure to remind me of this by making little comments about my cheap clothes or my beat-up car during family dinners. Last night was the rehearsal dinner, and I was the best man because Jackson doesn't have any close friends of his own, which should have been my first red flag. And after everyone had plenty to drink, I went out to the balcony of the hotel to get some air. I heard voices below me and realized it was Jackson and his father talking near the valet stand. I was about to head back inside when I heard my name mentioned. I stayed quiet and listened as Jackson's father told him that he better not mess this up because the merger depended on it. Jackson laughed and said he didn't care about Sarah at all and that he was only marrying her because our father had agreed to sign over a 30% stake in our family's logistics company as a wedding gift. Jackson called Sarah a shallow brat and said that once the papers were signed, he was going to go back to seeing his girlfriend in the city and Sarah would be too busy spending his dad's money to notice. And he literally joked about how easy it was to manipulate my father into giving away my inheritance just to secure a high society marriage for his favorite daughter. I spent the whole night staring at the ceiling in my hotel room feeling sick. I knew that if I told my father, he wouldn't believe me because he thinks Jackson is a visionary. I also knew that if I told Sarah, she would just think I was jealous and trying to ruin her big day. So I decided to let the day play out exactly as they planned until the very last second. The wedding today was at a massive cathedral with over 400 guests. My parents spent a fortune on the flowers alone. When the priest asked if anyone had any objections, I felt my heart racing, but I stayed silent. The real moment came when it was time for the rings. As the best man, I was holding them in a small velvet box. When Jackson reached out his hand, I didn't give him the ring. Instead, I pulled out my phone and held it up to the microphone on the pulpit. I had recorded the entire conversation from the balcony on my phone. The audio was clear as day. The entire cathedral heard Jackson calling Sarah a shallow brat and heard his father discussing the secret business merger and the theft of my inheritance. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Sarah turned to look at Jackson, and the look of pure shock on her face was something I will never forget. My father stood up in the front row looking like he was about to have a heart attack. Jackson tried to grab my phone, but I stepped back and told the priest the wedding was over. Now I looked at my sister and told her that I hoped the 30% stake was worth her dignity, and then I turned around and walked down the aisle. I didn't stop until I got to the parking lot and drove away in my beat-up car. My phone has been blowing up with hundreds of texts calling me a monster for humiliating her in front of everyone, but I don't feel bad at all. I saved my father's company and I showed my sister exactly what her golden life was actually built on. I am currently sitting in a bar 3 towns away drinking a beer, and for the first time in my life, I am the one who is winning.